Hey everybody, welcome to VR Game Rankings. This is our daily vlog series. Of course, this is episode 81, Monday, January 22nd. And I do have a number of news stories for us to jump into today, but I also have some VR game discussion. There were two different VR games that I played most all weekend long that I really got into. Two VR games that are pretty damn good, and I have a lot of stuff to talk about those two games, but that's going to come a little bit later. First, we want to jump into a couple of these key news stories to start off the day. And the biggest news story of the day has to do with the Inpatient. Yes, the Inpatient is arriving tomorrow on January 23rd for PlayStation VR. Now, once again, this is a PlayStation VR exclusive. This is coming to us from Supermassive Games. You may have heard me mention Supermassive Games a number of times. This is the developer that brought us Until Dawn Rush of Blood, and they also brought us Tumble VR. So right now, as far as I am concerned, Supermassive Games is batting a perfect 1,000. They've hit 2 home runs and 2 at-bats. Rush of Blood is incredible. Tumble VR is awesome. Both of these games are absolutely outstanding. And so obviously this is their new game, The Inpatient, and this one's going to be outstanding as well. Well, there is a little bit of concern that is going on in the PlayStation VR world right now. And the concern is length and also price. So apparently the Inpatient lasts a little bit over 2 hours. Yes, you heard me correctly. The Inpatient lasts a little bit over 2 hours. The price is $39.99, and there are a number of PSVR gamers that are up in arms over this, and they're saying, hey, do you really expect us to pay $40 for 2 hours of gameplay? Is this fair? Is this right? Should this game be a lot cheaper? Should it have a lot more content? What is the deal here? Okay, so my inside take on this is, first of all, I have not played this game. I have reached out to Supermassive Games in the hopes of getting review code for this game. I have not heard back from them, but other people do have review code for this, and they have been playing the game. And the early word that has leaked out in regards to these review copies is that this game is very short. You can finish this game in a little bit over 2 hours. Obviously, it's going to depend on how much time you take going through the various parts of the game and how quickly you move through that. But apparently you can get through this game in about 2 hours. Lots of people are up in arms about this. Now, what I do understand, though, is that the gameplay of this game is the type of gameplay where you are making a number of decisions that end up stacking upon themselves, and based on earlier decisions, different ramifications happen. They kind of call it a butterfly effect situation, so that one very insignificant little thing that you can do very early on in this game could have long-term ramifications. So the idea is, yeah, you can play through this thing in 2 hours, but you're going to get a completely different feel for this game if you go through the game again and you make a bunch of different decisions. So the idea here is that this is the way the game was designed to be played. It's not a super long game, but there are these branching pathways. And so we've seen some of this happen before in gaming, where you could have a relatively short experience, but if there are all these different branching pathways, then you have to understand that that is a very big part of it. And it's kind of implied that you're not going to play this game one single time and then you're just going to shelve this game. You're going to play it multiple different times. You're going to see a lot of different ways of getting through the game. So you're going to get a lot more than this 2 hours of gameplay. Now, I've also heard, however, there has been an occasional Redditor that has made this comment that they did not feel that the branching storyline was really that big of a deal, that they went back in, they made some different decisions, and things did end up a little bit differently, but it wasn't as big of a deal as they thought it would be, and they're not so sure that this butterfly effect style is really making the whole experience worth it for somebody that has to throw out $40. Now, what's my personal feelings about this? Well, here's the thing. I'm a big fan of Supermassive Games. So far, these guys are batting 1,000, okay? They created Rush of Blood. They created Tumble VR. Both of these games are absolutely outstanding. I would rate both of these games very highly, and in fact, I have rated both of these games very highly. They're some of the best VR games we've seen, period, on any platform. Rush of Blood, easily one of the 5 best horror games on any platform, bar none. Tumble VR, probably one of the 5 best puzzle type games on any platform as well. These guys have done outstanding work. They have not let us down yet. So I kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, though, I understand the concerns that all these PSVR players have. You pay $40 for something, you are expecting a little bit more than 2 hours worth of gameplay. Now, I do understand this branching storyline concept, but I've also understood that there have been games like this in the past that has this idea, but in actual practice, it doesn't really change things very much. It doesn't branch very much. So I don't know. I feel kind of like there's been a wet blanket that has been thrown on the entire launch of the Inpatient. This is concerning because this is the biggest VR game in the month of January. I think it's safe to assume that there is no bigger VR gaming release in the month of January than Sony's The Inpatient, which is coming to us from Supermassive Games. This is a huge game. This is a primetime release. A lot of people are incredibly excited about this, and we're going to have to see exactly what happens tomorrow when everybody out there gets their hands on this game. We'll have to see what the general idea is. Hopefully we'll get our hands on this game relatively soon as well, and I can give you my first-hand impressions of it. But right now, there is a little bit of concern in PlayStation VR land when it comes to The Inpatient. Okay, story number 2 is the Windows mixed reality headsets. Now, of course, if you've been watching this show, you already knew this was a story. I talked about this last week. I talked about how is this the fire sale part 2? What is going on here? Amazon has all these Windows mixed reality headsets on a deep discount. We talked about this last week. I'm only bringing this up again because both Road to VR and Upload VR finally have stories on their website about this, and they are mentioning this. And basically, all of us are kind of scratching our heads to a slight degree, trying to figure out what exactly is the thought process that is going on behind these deep discounts. Because if you go to Microsoft's website, the prices are MSRP. There are no discounts. If you want to buy the Acer on Microsoft's website, it is $399.99. You go on to Amazon, though, and it's like $200 and something. So what is going on here? We don't know. I really don't have much to say on this other than the fact that if you are looking for a very inexpensive way to jump into the PCVR platform, and if your IPD is somewhere around 65, 66, 67, a lot of these Microsoft mixed reality headsets might be a very inexpensive way to jump into PCVR, so you might want to take a look at that. Okay, next story of the day is The Perfect Sniper is now available. Now, this game is coming to us from Sin Studio. This game has a regular price of $16.99. There is a 10% launch discount on this game, which brings the price down to $15.29. Now, here's the thing. Sin Studio made a game called Wraith. The game looked kind of interesting, looked like a wave shooter. Some people described it as being similar to Brookhaven Experiment. If you go to Steam and you look for Wraith on Steam, I believe there is only one review for the game, one single review. Wraith, I believe, is $12.99. Now, this is their second VR game. It's called The Perfect Sniper. And if you watch the trailer for this game, it looks really cool. It looks like it would be kind of like Silent Scope or some type of game along those lines, where you are perched in different locations and you have to take somebody out. And the graphical designs look pretty good. It looks cool. However, I have looked at some of the early reviews of this game, The Perfect Sniper, and the early reviews are a little bit sketch. It appears that a lot of the story of the game has not been added. Really, honestly, it seems like the early reviews on this game seem to say hold on, wait, don't buy this game right away. Let's see what happens. Don't jump into this right away. There was one guy that had a positive review, but mostly it was negative. It's a real shame, though, because this does look cool. It does look to have a very cool trailer. It has a cool style. I might be getting a preview code, well, a review code of this game since it's already out. I might be getting a review code of this game at some point, so hopefully I'll have some firsthand impressions to let you guys know about this game. But at this point in time, it looks to be maybe hold off and wait for some more reviews or for the game to get some additional patches. Apparently, more of the story is being patched in within the first 24 to 48 hours of its availability. So it's kind of an unfinished game right now. So a little bit of caution maybe with The Perfect Sniper. Okay, and the last news story I have for today before I get into the game discussion is Skydance Interactive. Okay, so Dean Takahashi from VentureBeat has a relatively interesting article on the VentureBeat website about Skydance Interactive. Now, mostly this is an interview with Chris Hewish, which is the executive vice president for VR at Skydance Interactive. Now, you got to understand that Skydance Entertainment is a media entertainment company, like a Hollywood media company that started in 2010. It's founded by David Ellison, which is the son of Larry Ellison, the Oracle billionaire, of course, the CEO and founder of Oracle, and also a billionaire, Larry Ellison. His son, David Ellison, started up this new studio called Skydance. And not too long ago, they created Skydance Interactive, and that was going to be their game publishing arm of the company. And they decided that because they were coming relatively late to the game in the VR gaming industry, they decided, well, hey, VR is about to get kicked off. Why don't we jump in with VR? This is an opportunity for us to get a foothold in the VR market, carve out a space for ourselves before all the big players arrive. We can kind of grab this beachfront property in the VR gaming market, kind of stake our claim here and make a name for ourselves before all the biggest players come, and we can make a foundation for ourselves. And that's what they've done. They have released Archangel. I truly believe that Archangel is one of the most underrated VR games across any of the 3 platforms it's available on. You can get Archangel on PlayStation VR, you can get it on the Oculus Rift, and you can get it on the HTC Vive. Now, one of the reasons a lot of people have complained about Archangel is the game is on rails. And so people hear about this awesome mech game, they hear that it's on rails, and it is an immediate turnoff for a lot of people. It's a major mistake, though, that a lot of people are making by simply ignoring this game simply because it's on rails, because the on rails nature of the game allows them to do a lot with the story. This game is very story-based, and the story is very intertwined with the gameplay in such a way that the on-rails action allows for set pieces to be triggered at very specific moments, and it allows them to really pour on the eye candy and really up the production value. There's great sound. There's a lot of great production value that is going on in this game. It is really impressive. And so anyway, Dean Takahashi had an interview with Chris Hewish, and they were talking about a number of different subjects. But there were 3 pieces of news that came out in this interview. Number 1, Skydance Interactive is working on a VR game for The Walking Dead. So that is obviously exciting. We've heard about some other Walking Dead games that were supposed to be coming to VR. I believe it was it Starbreeze was supposed to be working on a Walking Dead game? Not sure whatever happened to that. But supposedly Skydance Interactive is hard at work on a Walking Dead VR title. The other bit of news that they have is they have an unannounced title that is coming in 2019 that they're working on. And then the third bit of news is that Archangel is going to get a multiplayer mode where everybody is going to be in mechs like you are in the regular game of Archangel, but that it is going to be go anywhere. It is not going to be on rails. There is going to be locomotion. There is going to be torso twisting. That was according to Chris Hewish in the interview. And there are also going to be new classes of mechs that you can choose. Now, what I don't know is this multiplayer mode going to be free for everyone that already has Archangel? Is it going to be some additional DLC that you pay money for? Is it going to be a standalone experience where you don't need to buy Archangel to get this and it's kind of standalone? We don't know any of that information yet, but supposedly it is coming in the middle half of 2018, so possibly late second quarter, very early third quarter is probably the arrival for this multiplayer mode. So we're definitely interested in that, and we will be following it closely. And you might want to go ahead and check out that article that Dean Takahashi has at VentureBeat. I think it's a pretty good interview. They get into the subject of whether or not VR is surviving or dying, or is it a good situation for companies like Skydance Interactive? Is it a bad situation? So there's a little bit of that talk in there as well. So it is relatively interesting. You might want to go ahead and check out that interview. Okay, let's get into some actual game discussion. There were 2 games this weekend that I could not stop playing, and I want to relay my experiences with both of these games to you. Okay, so first up is Primordian. Now, Primordian, I believe it maybe came out Friday on early access for $25. And so the thing about Primordian, I mean, I already talked about this earlier in the week. Now, I had not played it at this time, this new version. I had only played an older build. But what I did say was that this early access version only has a little bit over 2 hours of gameplay. We were just talking, of course, about the Inpatient, a little over 2 hours of gameplay for $40. Well, this is a little over 2 hours of gameplay for $25, so it's a little bit lighter on our pocketbooks, but these are obviously completely different games with completely different styles. Now, the thing about Primordian is graphics. Oh my God, this game is an absolute graphical showpiece. This is a showstopper, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so when we think about the most graphically intense games in VR gaming, we typically think of, say, Robo Recall, maybe Arctica 1, maybe Lone Echo, maybe Arizona Sunshine. You know, when we think of some of the most graphically impressive VR games, those come to mind. Well, Primordian has to be added into the mix because let me tell you, the graphics in this game are absolutely amazing. You get in here and you are in an alien jungle. This is very much Pandora. This is like Avatar, okay? It's although, yeah, you're in this alien jungle. It's very Avatar. It has a little bit of Predator in it as well, and even a little dash of Halo 3. At the very beginning of Halo 3, you start off in this jungle, and when I was playing Primordian, for some reason, I got a little bit of that Halo 3 vibe. I'm not sure why, but there's definitely an Avatar vibe. There's definitely a Predator vibe, especially among the enemies that you encounter. And the lush jungle that you enter here is really the story of this whole game, because you get out there, and when it comes to atmosphere, this game is absolutely dripping with atmosphere. Everywhere you look, it is incredibly colorful. It is vivid. It is exciting, and it's this alien world. This is kind of what we dream about when it comes to VR. I don't know about you, but I can say for myself personally, I love this idea of being transported to a completely alien world and have that alien world completely surround me and envelop me in the action, and I kind of get lost, and it's like I'm in a different place. I've entered this magical world. You look around the world of Primordian, you look up at the sky, you see clouds going by, you see winged creatures flying up there, you see different moons and different planets that are out there, you see sunlight peeking through, you see darkness, you're in vibrant areas with all kinds of colors, there's all kinds of different plant life, there's all kinds of creatures that are moving about. And then of course, when you first encounter these enemies will catch you off guard. The way they approach you, the way they move, it goes into a slow motion mode. The sound, the audio, all of it combines to, it's a very visceral experience. It's a very impactful experience. This is the kind of thing you might want to be careful putting a VR newbie into Primordian, because it might be almost a little bit overpowering in terms of like the audio visual assault that is going to happen to the person that plays Primordian. Now, The real question is, I've just talked about all these great things about Primordian, but is there a fly in the ointment? And yes, unfortunately there is. First of all, we only have a little bit over 2 hours of content here. Now, the developers are hoping that they're going to provide all this additional content over time, and this game will continue to expand and get deeper and get longer, and there will be more story and all of that. And all of that sounds great, and hopefully all of that will happen, but we don't know for sure if any of that is really going to happen. Also, the actual combat. The actual combat is very visceral, it is very in your face, it is very exciting, and it is somewhat startling, but eventually you're going to get used to it, and eventually you're going to come to find out that if you time a few sword slices at the right times, you can pretty much decapitate these enemies within a handful of seconds. Now, it depends on which enemies you're fighting. There's a couple of different enemies. Some of them take a lot longer to bring down than others, but some of them, a couple quick sword slashes, their heads come flopping off, and their huge, monstrous bodies end up falling to the ground in a heap and a puddle of blood, basically, okay? And so it's the combat that is a big concern for me here, and the enemy types tend to repeat a lot. Now, I have seen in screenshots, I've seen range weapons, I've seen other different kinds of creatures, like these spider kind of creatures that you battle. I have not actually seen that in this early access version yet myself personally, but I have not seen everything that this early access version has to offer. I have explored, I've probably been in there about an hour and a half to 2 hours, so I've seen a lot of it, but I haven't seen absolutely everything. I might have went down a different path, and there might be some other stuff for me to uncover, but it definitely looks good, looks absolutely beautiful. It sounds incredible, although I don't believe the audio is 3D positional audio in the way it is for, say, something like Heart of the Emberstone. Heart of the Emberstone, if there's somebody 10 feet over there that's talking to you, it really sounds like they're 10 feet over there and they're talking to you from that direction. It is this positional audio. I don't believe that Primordian has positional audio, but graphics and sounds are incredible. Okay, so let's move on to Sprint Vector. So Sprint Vector is the other game that I can't stop playing this weekend. Now, obviously, there is this open beta for Sprint Vector. This kicked off on Friday. I was able to get into the open beta, and I've been playing it over the weekend. Now, the thing about Sprint Vector, it's hard for me, honestly, to put my finger on the pulse of Sprint Vector. I don't have a very clear-cut take on Sprint Vector. On Primordian, I can tell you, look, graphics and sounds are incredible. Gameplay is a little bit, I'm not sure. You know, it's kind of one of those situations with Primordian. I don't have a quick, concise take for Sprint Vector, and one of the reasons I don't is because I still have not wrapped my brain around the controls completely. So in Sprint Vector, it's kind of this racing game, okay, that you're basically racing along these tracks. It's kind of a Mario Kart. It's kind of a Wipeout, except you are not in a cart. You're not in a hovercraft. You're basically racing on your own 2 feet, kind of on these futuristic rollerblades, I guess you could say. And what you're doing in this game is you're reaching out with your hands and you're pulling the triggers and you're pulling back. So it's kind of like cross-country skiing. It's like you're reaching out with your ski pole, you're plopping it, you're pulling, and you're letting go. So it's kind of cross-country skiing. This is what you do to move in Sprint Vector. There's a lot of other different maneuvers you can make. You can jump, you can vault off of certain objects, you can kind of fly, there's power-ups. Lots of stuff is going on here, and they do provide plenty of tutorials to work you through all of this stuff. But I have to say that I have tried, there's 3 different races or 3 different tracks that I've been able to try, and I've been able to try them single player style. I have not gone into multiplayer yet. And I've tried these tracks single player style, and I can't shake the fact that I still have not been able to come to complete grips with this control system. Like I feel like there's some stumbling block that's going on that is preventing me from just enjoying the game without ever thinking about the controls. So the one concern I do have with Sprint Vector is there definitely is a learning curve here. However, there is a lot of really good stuff that is going on in Sprint Vector. First of all, the game is incredibly colorful. This thing is absolutely bursting with color. It is very colorful. It kind of has a retro-ish vibe to it. It has a style that's all its own. There's some comedy that comes with this game as well. It's got good music. It's got really good production values. I can tell you this, Survios, the developer of this game, who has also made Raw Data, they've already got one hit VR franchise in Raw Data, and this could be their second VR franchise. This could be a hit for them. Sprint Vector could be a thing going forward. It kind of reminds me a little bit of SSX. Do you guys remember that Electronic Arts game SSX on like PlayStation 2? This is very similar to that in some ways. It has a little bit of Wipeout. It has a little bit of F-Zero. It almost looks a little bit like a Super Nintendo game with its colorful stylings and its kind of retro-ish stylings as well. There's a lot of good stuff that is going on with Sprint Vector. There's a lot of fun to be had here. The courses are really enjoyable to go through and very interesting, and they're very different from one another. There's a lot of good stuff going on here, but I'm still struggling a bit with the controls. So I don't really have a final take on Sprint Vector other than that I know there's going to be some people that get this game and they're going to get frustrated with these controls, and some people are going to bounce out of it. Now, part of this, I have to say, part of this could be very Oculus Rift specific. And the reason I say that is because the grip buttons, if you accidentally hit the grip buttons while you're playing this, the grip buttons are break. And it's a real problem because I think I accidentally hit the grip buttons quite a bit and it really slows me down. If you're playing this on the Vive, it's a lot less easy to hit that grip button accidentally. So Vive players might actually be having a better experience with Sprint Vector, and they might be able to learn the controls a little bit easier. But it is still a really good game. I'm definitely going to be playing it a lot more the rest of this open beta period, which I believe is until January 28th, so there's a lot of days left. So I'm going to try to get a lot more time at this. I'm going to try to really learn this. It has a lot of great stuff going on here, so I really still do like Sprint Vector. I'm just trying to get my brain wrapped around this control scheme. Okay, guys, we've been going for quite some time here. I did not want to do this long of a show, but I had to talk about Primordian. I had to talk about Sprint Vector. I'm sure I'm going to talk more about both of those games going forward. We do have the Inpatient coming out tomorrow. Will be very interesting to see how the general public at large reacts to the gameplay length and to the pricing and all of that. So we'll definitely have more on that as well. So I will see everybody on tomorrow's episode. Have a wonderful Monday, everybody. Take it easy, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Later.